welcome back to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio. Big Sky Howdy, everybody. Coming to you from Montana and from further west. I have a special guest with me tonight that hasn't been on the show before, but I've been on his show. And he requires very little, if any, introduction because he is the master of the terrestrial radio paranormal show. And of course, I'm referring to Jimmy Church from Fade to Black. And once you fade to black, you won't want to come back. Welcome to the show, Jimmy.
Duke, thank you. It's a pleasure. It is an honor. And hello to everybody out there. I'm going to let everybody know I've got multiple cameras in front of me. This is the one that's lit up. But I have Duke on this screen over here, not on this screen or this screen. So I'm going to try to look at the camera. So I'm looking at the audience instead of looking at Duke over here, who's going to see if I'm talking, to everybody all night going in this direction. They're like, what's church doing? So the here, but Duke is here. Does that make sense? Okay, so if you see me gravitate this way, I'm looking right. That's a cool hat, by the way. I really dig that.
I got my camo Punisher hat on.
See, so I'm looking at Duke now, but now I'm looking at you. See, so that's what's going on. Duke.
Good evening, Jimmy. Wonderful to have you with us all here. I'm sure everybody will be sitting with rapt attention listening to every word that comes plopping out of your mouth like they usually do on your show every night. And if somehow you've been living in the far northern tundra or in a deserted cave somewhere where you can't get a radio station, go check out Fade to Black Radio, Jimmy Church. It's on every week night. What time slot are you on over there in California?
Yeah, in Pacific time, we're 7 to 10 p.m. live, Monday through Thursday. And whatever your listening choice is, whatever your pleasure is, everything is over on our website, which is jimmychurchradio.com, and social media and everything else. And that's enough of the shameless plugs. But you can just .com. Everything's there. It's free. You just go, and it's free because we have lots of commercials.
Well, shameless plug was encouraged, Jimmy, and I think you've got a very worthy show. One of the things I like about it is the variety aspect of it. But beyond that, there's plenty of shows out there that'll do a variety of topics around the paranormal subject. Jimmy impressed me greatly because he actually does research. He'll go look real deep into the topic before he has on somebody that he thinks is one of the people that knows something about it. So he knows what questions to ask. So you in the audience aren't going, Jimmy, you should ask him this. No, Jimmy's done his research. He will ask him that. And so I really appreciate that. Good job, man.
Well, I from the very beginning, Duke, first off, I'm a student of talk radio, and I've listened to talk radio my entire life, and I had found late night AM radio craziness in the 70s in Indianapolis, and these late night, and I started listening and would leave the radio on all night and listen to these strange subjects. But what that showed me was what was keeping my interest, and what was keeping my interest was an honest conversation, where the opposite happens with, something on television with a couple of talking heads, and you just know somebody is reading questions off of a pad of paper, and probably the person being interviewed has given them those questions, and you feel like it's a script. I would always tune out. You know what I mean? My interest, I would suddenly start looking around, and when you do that, you've checked out, and you probably won't check back in. And I learned that at a very, very young age. And so as I started to study different talk radio hosts over the years, the best are just talking. They're not prepared question readers. They're not doing that. And there are show hosts out there, I know them personally, that would rather phone it in and have you invite a guest on the show, and then you give them the requirements. Send us your bio, send us this, send us that, send us that, and give us 20 questions, right, that you want to ask. And now that is cheating, number one. And number two, the audience knows. The audience knows when you ask a question and the answer comes immediate, and it may have been an answer that you've already heard 20 times from the same guest before anyway, but you check out, and the audience, they know this. They know it. I just will never do that. And so my choices very early on were no prepared questions on any show that I do. It doesn't matter if it's radio, television, or film. To give you an example, just shot a film in Los Angeles a couple of weeks ago, and very, very cool list of personalities in this film. And told the director when it came to one of the sections, and they're filming me in this big sound stage, and I'm in this crazy white leather chair with the dramatic. It's big. It's really cool, like Stanley Kubrick. And I dug the color. Anyway, so I go up to the director, or he comes up to me and he goes, "So, what do you want to talk about?" I said, "Man, number one, it's your film. Number two, let's just go." And he goes, "Well, I've been waiting for this for a long time. Is that cool with you?" I said, "Come on. That is the only way you are going to get me or something natural, and it's going to come out." We ended up, I'm probably going to be in the film for 5 minutes. I sat in that chair for 2.5 hours. We sat and just talked. And that's just it. And it's the same thing with television. Every time I did this TV show on time travel, and we shot in Burbank at one of the ESPN studios. They do like NFL Today there, and they literally had it was really cool. They had an indoor, like a 50-yard with this AstroTurf with the lines painted and everything. And we've got Astro. I was like, man, this is cool. And there it was, NFL Sunday, whatever, ESPN down at the end, and there's the set. And we set up at one end of this ginormous room. Anyway, so the same thing with the director, and he comes up, and I mean, it's sound and lights and catering and people and production and all the stuff going on. And he comes up and he's got a list of questions. And he goes, "Do you want to look at it?" I said, "No." I said, "Actually, let me see those." And he hands me, and this is the director, tore the page off, wadded up in a ball, and I threw it over my shoulder, and I handed him the pad back. And I said, "Buddy," I did that to the director. I don't want that. I want him or her to react to my answer, right? And you go on. Don't just go down a list of stuff. You know what you want out of me. Let's just go and let's make the magic happen. And so anyway, that is Fade to Black. That is me on Coast to Coast. That's me on any television show you've seen me on, or film, or it is always the same, just like we're doing right now.
Real deal.
That's it.
Yep, that's the way to do it too. That's the way I like to do my show. And I just spent quite a few minutes talking to Jimmy before we actually started recording. And in most cases, when I have a guest on my show, I already know him. I may have talked to him a dozen times before I have him on the show. So they've already got that comfort level, and they're so used to talking to me, they just spontaneously fall right back into that. I'm just talking to my friend Duke, and they forget they're being recorded. See, and again, this is, it's a lot longer route to the same thing, but it gets you that kind of a spontaneous interview where it's just a couple people sitting there having a chat, and they're going to tell you exactly what they think because they're more or less talking to each other, and you just happen to be listening in.
That's where the magic happens, Duke. And I think anybody that is listening right now, they understand that and they appreciate it. And certainly when you were on Fade to Black and watching, well, your fans that were there that night was pretty cool, but it was the Fade to Black audience and reacting to you, which says that we're on the, we're on the right mark, we're on the right path, we're doing it the right way. I just refuse to do formula, and I don't care. And and I really, when he's, how can you just say I don't care? Well, I don't. And there's a whole nother part to this. When I started Fade to Black, and which branched off, to everything else eventually. When I started Fade to Black, I had just gotten out of a few years prior to that. I had just gotten out of journalism and broadcasting and school. And one of the things that you are taught, and most students of this don't understand when they're getting into it, or those that want to start a podcast. Now everybody's got a podcast, or somebody wants to do a live stream on Facebook or YouTube and do what we're doing right now. What they don't understand is you have to be yourself, right? Don't be your hero. If you're a guitar player and your hero is Eddie Van Halen, and you play just like Eddie Van Halen, and then you wonder why you can't get in a band. You got to be yourself. Eddie was himself. Be yourself. Don't be your heroes. Well, so when I started Fade to Black, and I'll never forget, I did sports before that for a few years, but when I started Fade to Black, the only concern for me was to talk about the things that I enjoy, and it's very simple: conspiracy, UFOs, time travel, paranormal, Bigfoot, the supernatural, whatever, time travel, and guitars, good food, and funny films, and good breakfast cereal, whatever it is that I felt compelled to talk about that night was the show. And hopefully somebody out there would resonate with that. Yeah, man, I'm into Dimebag Darrell and Roswell, right? I like a good taco. And so maybe, right? But that's how you develop your thing. Well, it turned out I had millions of people that liked Eddie Van Halen, Led Zeppelin, and Little Green Men, and it was really funny for me to see this explode like it did. I am just me. That's it. The things that I love, the things that interest me, are on the show every night, and I don't mask anything. There are people, Duke. This is what I find so compelling. There are people that come to Fade to Black because they've heard of the show, right? Okay. Yep. They don't know what to expect. And so, they've heard all the, oh man, the show's great. Jimmy Church is man and his guests. So they have something, right? This vision. And then they come on the show for the first time and they're listening, and they may get 45 minutes of guitar pickups, right? And you just don't know. I thought this show was about a conspiracy theory. I don't know what a Seymour Duncan is, but the rest of my audience does. You know what I mean? And one of the things that I love to do, and I do this every time Richard Dolan is on the show, and he's so respected and things, and I love the guy to death. He's one of my closest friends. But the first thing I ask him every time he's on the show, and he's on once a month, every other month, is, Richard, what was the last song you listened to today? And then he'll say it. I listen to Run DMC. I listen to Steely Dan, whatever it is. And then we'll end up talking about that band for 30 minutes, way before we get to the UFO headlines. And it's just a conversation. And the audience gets that. Now, if some Richard Dolan fan comes in because they heard that Richard Dolan's going to be on this great show called Fade to Black, and they come in and they're ready to go, and Richard Dolan's going to talk about his new book. He's going to talk about the UAP task force report. He's going to talk about the Department of Defense and disclosure, and they get 45 minutes of the Temptations. Right? And I don't care. I tell you, some of the best stuff that I have done with any guest is that their favorite food, their favorite movie, and music, whatever it may be. But getting inside of somebody like that, for the audience, it tells them something about this individual. And they may have read all the books and they've seen all the TV shows, and then you bring them on. Giorgio Tsoukalos, love the guy to death. The best shows that I've done with him, I don't even think we talked about UFOs or ancient aliens once. We did 2 hours of veganism, steak, and so to stay on this with your audience, I hope they appreciate this. It was about 7 years ago. Had Linda Moulton Howe, and who's amazing, right? She's great. Love that woman to death.
Yep.
And she came on, and it was a Thanksgiving show, and I think it was on Thanksgiving or the night before Thanksgiving, and we did this show. Anyway, we talked about her going to school at Stanford in the late 60s and what it was like to be a woman journalist in a man's world. We didn't talk about UFOs. We didn't talk about Antarctica. We didn't talk about cattle mutilations. And to hear her emotionally really get what's sad, right? And all you have is empathy at a moment like this. But Linda's never done that before, and for her, and to this day, she reminds me of that show. We'll be somewhere privately off, and she'll bring it up, and because that was one of the first times for her that, although the audience is there to hear about her UFO research and what is she working on over at Earth Files, I get that. But to give her an opportunity to just sit down and let it out, because she's been doing this for 45 years as a woman in an industry that is severely closed off. And it is a man's world. It truly is a man's world. And we all understand that, and it doesn't get talked about much, but when you hear from somebody who has absolutely been kicking down doors and been at the center of everything for a long, long time. You go back to A Strange Harvest and the books and the documentaries and things, going back into the 80s and the late 70s. When there was nobody covering the subject, let alone somebody like her who had won a Station Peabody Award, a regional Emmy Award, Stanford graduate, a very distinguished career, and then goes off and starts covering these subjects that nobody else will cover. And it was difficult for her. And that is a conversation that you can only have without prepared questions, without any thought or vision of where this conversation is supposed to go. And it was one of the best nights ever. Now here's the problem. Now she comes on the show and she doesn't want to talk about UFOs anymore. Linda, what about Bigfoot? Ah, Jimmy, I want to talk about my favorite dessert recipes. It's really funny, and I thoroughly enjoy it, and that's how that is the formula of Fade to Black, and it is just two people talking, and there are things that need to be discussed, and we'll try to get it in, but it's just organic, and you're here for the ride. You can't go with any expectations because it probably won't happen.
Well, a deeper dive into the personality and the quirks of some of your guests and stuff is really fascinating to people. You get a lot of the bigger name people on there, and everybody's been following their research and their shows and stuff for years, and they're like, I really like this person's work. I wish I knew something about them. And nobody ever asks them those questions. It's always about their work or something. An example of that would be Bob Gimlin, who was, one of the guys that shot the Patterson-Gimlin film. Every time they get him on a show, well, tell us what it was like to be there. And, it's like, how many zillion times do you want to repeat the same story? And they never ask him about anything else. The more gripping part of that story was after they filmed her and they were trying to get out of there the next day. And the stuff that happened with them trying to get out of there was way more epic than filming her. But nobody ever asked Bob about that. I've only heard him do an interview on that subject one time. I think it was on Sasquatch Chronicles. Wes actually asked him. And man, the hell they went through to get out of there. It's amazing they survived to get out of there with the video. The filming her wasn't the tough part. It was surviving and getting out of there with the video. But, that kind of stuff, I think people really love it. And that's one of the things that sets you apart from a lot of the other people that are doing that, because you're willing to do that kind of stuff and do a deep dive. And the other thing I wanted to bring up that you just referenced, Linda Moulton Howe, is how weird it is the way some of these people get involved in doing this whole paranormal thing and trying to dig up the information on it. Beast of Bray Road, Linda Godfrey. That whole thing was just totally backwards, and she just kind of backed into it. Wait, what's going on with this? And then suddenly she was the expert, and everybody was sending them their accounts, and she had no inclination to get involved in this at all. It just got dropped in her lap, basically.
Right. And I've gone through that a few times, and what I had to do, I had to make a couple of decisions, and early on, maybe I'll get into specifics in a bit, but early on, I was given information, and suddenly I'm a researcher. Now, am I a show host or am I a researcher? And I, going back to the sports days, I'm not going to waste any time discussing this, but back in the sports days, I broke this huge national story. I'm not going to get into the details, but I happened to break it. And I only broke it because I was given information during the show. One of my producers got some stuff that was sent to me. And the next thing you know, for the next 3 months, I am the focus of this. And I just wanted to do the show. And after about 3 months, I just want to do a show, right? That's it. I just wanted to be a host. I'm not a researcher. I'm not a journalist. I'm not. I very little interest in it, but I was thrust into it. And then after 3 months, I told my producers, no more. We're getting back to just doing the show. And it was the same thing in the UFO and conspiracy world, where I am given information, and it happened to me again, and I stepped into it, and I break this story. The next thing you know, I'm on ABC News, and it got out of control, and I was supposed to be this expert, and I was spending all of this time doing research when all I really wanted to do was just host a show and interview people. I don't want to go and be the subject of interviews, and I don't want to be the go-to guy for this research. You guys go and do it. I don't want, and it's happened so often with Fade to Black and Coast to Coast and everything else. I mean, my email and all of my information is public, and I get videos and stories every single day. I look at them, but I'm not going to research them, and I'm not going to do video analysis, and I'm not going to give my opinions, and I don't have the time to do that. And too many times, like Linda Godfrey is a really good example of that, and so many others too as well, that I had to make a choice. And I did this a long time ago, years. I host a show. I do the interviews, right? You can ask me, we do open lines once a week. You can ask me any question you want. And you want me to answer a question, you want advice, you want an opinion, okay. But it stops on call-in night. The rest of the time, Duke, I am not giving my opinion to a researcher who is a guest on the show. I'm not it's not about me. It's about my guest. And I just stopped. I am not a researcher. I'm a host. When I do all of these conferences, and radio, television, and film and all of that stuff, I am a host. I've spoken at conferences, but and they always ask me to do a presentation, and I usually decline because, first off, I'm not that interesting, and I'm not that smart, and I don't do that much research, and I don't have a whole lot to present to anybody. But I tell them all the same thing. Look, I'll host your panels. I'll do the opening ceremonies. I'll do the closing ceremonies. I'll introduce. I'll host your banquet. Let's have a dinner. Give me a microphone. I can be that guy, right? I'll be your Jerry Lewis for your telethon. That's okay. But I'm not a speaker. You know what I mean? I'm not any of that. And I just drew the line very early on. And that's it. I've carved my little piece, and it's all been by accident. And here I am. The rest I've got coming up in the next 4 months. I have 4 conferences. I have 4 conferences back to back to back to back to back. And I am just the host. Right? Okay.
Right on.
Want to sell tickets, and you want to put my picture on there, and Jimmy Church is going to be here hosting. Great. Don't say I am going to be presenting or I'm going to be speaking about. And they always ask, what am I going to talk about?
MC Jimmy Church.
Yeah, the art of what? Of barbecuing steaks. Oh, about that. I'm an expert on grilling corn. That I can tell you how to string a guitar in the dark.
That's pretty good skill.
Yeah, that's a real skill. I'll do a whole seminar on that. But yeah, it's really, really strange how I just consciously had to make that. It sounds like fun, but I had to make that decision. I'm not a researcher, right? I've been asked to write books. I'm like, what am I going to write a book about? Well, just whatever, man. Just write a book. About what? Why would what is it what is it possibly could be so compelling and interesting to somebody that they would want to read it, let alone buy it? What would I, because I don't bring that to the table. That's not what I bring to the table.
One chapter you could do would be on the Zen of barbecue. I get pestered by people that tell me that too. Duke, why don't you have any books out? Why aren't you writing books and stuff? Well, you know what? I'm kind of like only one person. I have limited time. Do you want me to still keep doing shows, or do you want me to write a book? And the other thing is, if you want to know what I know and what I would write down in a book, like 90% of it is on my shows. Just go watch them. So why do I need to write a book?
Somebody approached me, and I honestly, it wasn't that bad of an idea, but said, why don't we publish a book of your fader facts? See, each night on the show, I have a fader fact, right?
Right.
And I research crazy facts. That's my research, and so they said, it would be great. So that's the easiest book I could ever write. Just go back to my show notes for each night for the last 10 years, pull it out and print it. And as a matter of fact, I'll give you all the if you want to compile it, put it together. But that's not writing a book.
No.
You see what I'm saying? That's not writing a book.
It would probably sell good though. I mean, you'd be surprised at some of the here's an example. Well, I can't remember what it was called. I think there was two of them. It was like little known facts about Chuck Norris or something, and none of them were real. They were all just little known fact. When the boogeyman goes to bed, he checks underneath it to make sure Chuck Norris isn't there, and that kind of stuff. It was all comedy, but people ate it up. And then Chuck found out this guy was doing it and went, "Well, that's hilarious. I'll go help you tour your book and promote it."
That's awesome, actually. It's awesome. Yeah. Hey, speaking of Chuck, when people bring up Chuck Norris, I don't think of Chuck. It's really weird. I always think about Bruce Lee and
the Roman Coliseum fight. Yep.
See him with the cats in the background.
Yep.
All those feral cats.
God.
I always thought that was pretty weird. I guess they couldn't get the cats off the set. You know what I mean? So they're just like, screw it, let's just let the cats stay. But one of the best fight scenes, and we all know who won and lost that. But that's what I don't think of the other Chuck Norris. I don't think of the official Chuck Norris. I always think that fight scene, which I've seen like 50 times. It's incredible. But I always think of Bruce Lee.
Honestly, Jimmy, that's what used to pop into my head all the time too. And then I got some friends that actually know Chuck and have trained with him and stuff before. And they told me so many stories about what a super nice guy he is and how humble he is and everything, that now when I see Chuck Norris, I just think, oh, super nice, cool, humble guy. I wish I get a chance to meet him. So that doesn't pop up in my head anymore. But the other thing that goes around is that hilarious meme that they had. And it said, you ever notice how there's lots of jokes about Chuck Norris going around, but you don't see any jokes about Bruce Lee? That's because Bruce Lee was no joke. And Chuck isn't either. He is a bad, tough dude, very capable of doing exactly what he presents on the screen. But Bruce Lee was on a different level. That guy would train literally 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. I don't even know how he survived his training. That's why he was so ridiculously good.
Yeah. I still do. I have the Bruce Lee DVD box set of all of his films. And what I'd love to do, I do this all the time, is like I'll put them in rotation, right? And I'll just pull them out in order and then start over again. But I went through, and like I just said, it continues to this day, a huge Bruce Lee fan. That started like all of us that are, our age.
Yeah.
Started in the early 70s, and you're hearing about this guy and Golden Harvest and jumping into all of those films, even the imitation Bruce Lee guys that came out after his death. There was hundreds of actors with a different spelling of Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
Watched all those films, and you go and watch. Now, there are a few guys today that are really, really, really talented. Love Jet Li. Jet Li's great.
Yeah.
But Bruce Lee, you watch those films, and he was so great, like not of this earth, a gift from the gods, a moment in time. He was singular. He was so amazing to watch on film, and I just couldn't get enough of it. Have you ever seen Kung Pao Enter the Fist?
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. Now you have to. I think that film is amazing. Okay.
It's really hilarious.
Really hilarious. Okay. So you have to be a student and a fan of this genre to eventually end up at Kung Pao Enter the Fist. You've seen it all, is what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
You've kind of gone through it all. But you really appreciate how great Bruce Lee was, and there was just nothing else. Yeah, all the other very, very talented martial artists that were making these films were really good. And even the best of the best that were in all of those Bruce Lee movies, those guys are like in a tank of molasses.
Yeah, compared to him, they sure were.
Yeah.
Did you ever see Kentucky Fried Movie?
Love it.
Okay, so you've seen Fistful of Yen in there.
Yes.
It's kind of hilarious for me what a switcheroo that was, because when they did Enter the Dragon, they had a very talented actor who had some martial arts training to play Mr. Han. And in the parody version, Fistful of Yen from Kentucky Fried Movie, they had Supreme Grand Master of Hapkido, Mangsu Han, playing the part of Mr. Klon. So he was so much better than the actor trying to play the part of Bruce Lee. It was hilarious watching the few fight scenes that they actually had.
Yes, 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 and that's exactly what I'm talking about too, as well. I think it was, I'm trying to think of which movie Bruce Lee broke the ribs of his co-star in The Kick.
Oh, that was Bob Wall, wasn't it? Was that Enter the Dragon?
Yeah, Enter the Dragon. So Bob Wall says, and I'm watching the documentary, and he goes, "Now watch this." And I told Bruce, "Man, just kick me for real, right?"
Don't say that to Bruce. Are you nuts?
Bruce kicks him in the ribs. He gets knocked back off of the set, right? And he said he broke. I was out of the movie. He broke my ribs, and he said something like, he said, "I thought I was kicked by a mule."
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so now you go back and you watch that scene, because that's in the film. That scene is in the film. That's a real kick, and he knocked him back about 25 feet.
There's another scene in that movie that I always thought was interesting, where he's fighting Mr. Han in the mirrored chamber, and they're having their big battle. And there's one scene in there where he does this outside wheel kick and gets him with the edge of his foot coming across his forehead. And when they were filming that scene, they're like, we're gonna have to use a dummy for this. You sure? Yeah, we're gonna set the dummy up, and you just kick it as hard as you can. We're gonna make a dummy that looks exactly like Mr. Han and be standing there, and you just give it your kick full force. And watch what happens on the screen with that segment. He just flies. It's like he booted him with a tornado. This thing, if he would have done that to a real human being, his head would have literally snapped and flown off.
And how great that scene, and the way that they shot it, the mirror house scene. No CG, right? It's cameras and Bruce Lee, and very creative ideas going down. That's one of the best scenes in cinema. It's just incredible. I love Enter the Dragon. Is worth the praise. It's worth the praise. It's really, really that great of a film. Man, I'm just
it really is.
Thinking about the different scenes in that movie. Whew.
Yeah, if you want to see the guy that started the whole martial arts craze in the movie that did it, there it is right there, because people saw that and they're like, wow, this guy caught lightning in a bottle. Watch him do it again. This is ridiculous. And the other thing is, there's the background video on this guy outside the movies where they've got video of him doing, karate competitions and stuff like that, where he would just do demonstrations. Here's a one finger push up. Here, I'll do a 1-inch punch and knock this 250-pound guy 10 feet through the air and land on his butt in a chair. I'll punch you so fast you can't block me. Here's your palm of your hand, and you try and close your hand, as quickly as you can, grab the pebble from my hand. You just hold your hand open with that nickel there, and I'll try and grab it, and you close your hand. And they would try, and they would close their hand, and he would hold up the nickel, and they'd be like, wait, there's something in my hand still. And they'd open their hand, and he had put a dime in their hand and pulled the nickel out so fast they didn't even realize he did it.
There is much better, probably, in my opinion, than all of Bruce's movies, is a collection of films. There's not that many, but of Bruce at a martial arts competition in San Jose, California. It's in black and white. Before he ever made a movie. And I think there's three different ass kickings in and nothing against the competitors, and this is like the world championships in San Jose, and the best of the best is there. Bruce was so much better than anybody else out there, and you feel bad, because these kids are coming up, whatever, hey, whatever, and they're stepping up and they're getting ready, and they can't even see his hands.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't see his feet. They couldn't see. He was so fast, and to go now. This isn't a movie. This is a martial arts competition.
Yep.
Wow. I mean, it's just incredible. So go and check those out. I haven't watched them in a few years, but I remember just seeing these clips over and over again. And there's a documentary about Bruce Lee put out by his family. It came out about 20 years ago. And I got the DVD, and on that DVD was one of these fight scenes from, I think it was San Jose. And that's when I went and chased him down. So they're out there. So there you go. Now, who would win in a fight, though? Bruce Lee or Bigfoot? I think that's the question.
Bigfoot.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any question about who would win that, because Bruce is super fast, but he ain't strong enough to do any damage to Bigfoot, and Bigfoot will just rip out a 3-ton tree and flatten him with it, and that would be kind of the end of the fight. So
I got to show you this.
Oh, nice.
My boy right here. My boy.
Is that a chainsaw carve, or did somebody do it with a chisel?
It's a chisel, and there he is.
Nice.
Man,
You got a little happy squatchlet there with you, keeping you company in the studio.
it's totally cool. Redwood, and but he's my boy.
I like his grin.
He's awesome, man.
That's good stuff. Well, we got a picture one that looks a lot like that here back in June that we got to go do shoot comparison shot for this coming weekend after next. So we'll see if we had a real one or if we got a stump squatch on on video. So let's get on to the topic of cryptids here, because I'm sure some of the audience would like to hear that, being that that's what my show generally centers on. What do you think is the most compelling evidence that you've seen for a cryptid of any kind, Bigfoot or any of the other ones?
For me, in person or just in general?
Well, if you want to go that way, what have you actually seen in real life that makes you think cryptids are real? But
Right.
other than that, the best footage or best information you've come across.
Well, I did have, how do I say this? I had big footprint sightings, right?
Right on.
And what had happened? Okay, I remember before I get into that, here's a little quick side note. Had Jeffrey Meldrum on the show. He's great.
Yep.
And we all know Jeffrey. And I told Jeffrey, I said, Jeffrey, I'm on the fence. I can go either way. If you want to push me on one side, here's your chance. Right? And that was always my take on Bigfoot. I was always I could go either way, right? And be okay with it. Bigfoot's not real. Some evidence pops up that everything is, fake. I'd be okay with that. Or Bigfoot is real, right? He's hanging out in downtown Sausalito right now. News at 11. I'm okay with it too. I'm just okay with it. I can go either way. I haven't dipped my toe far enough in the water on either side where I would be emotionally damaged, right? Okay, so whatever. Let the facts fall where they may. So, I'm at a conference, and we're up in Washington State. It's my conference, and we've got about 250 people there.
Nice.
Yeah, it was cool. But when it's my conference, I'm getting pulled all day long in one direction or another to talk to somebody or to do something. I had very little alone time, and there was a lot of families and things, and so there were four boys that I know pretty well, that were there, that were from different families, but we're up in the forest of Washington State. We're on a 150-acre ranch, and you're four boys that have met up with each other. It's go time, right? They're going to have fun, and they're out playing and doing things, right? So, but I got some alone time. Somebody's speaking over here, the crowds, and I found myself alone, and I got a cold drink, and I went over by the fire pit, and I'm just sitting there in peace. One of the kids comes up at that moment. It was the wrong moment to bother. And he comes up and he goes, Hey, Jimmy. I said, what's up, man? You want to see a Bigfoot print? I'm like, oh, man, no.
You kids are manufacturing fake evidence. Quit messing with me.
No. It's a Bigfoot print. And it goes like this, right? It's this big. I said, listen, how far do I have to walk? God, exactly what came out of my mouth. And he's like, it's right over there. And I'm like, man, what? And I look out to where he points into this field, and the other three boys are out in the middle of this field, and they're all looking at me. I'm stuck, right? I said, all right. Let me go see this Bigfoot print. I'm just being a dick. I was zenning out, right? And so anyway, so we go across this field, and I'll tell you, I'll make a deal with everybody here. I will send Duke pictures of what I'm about to tell you, and Duke, you can insert them into.
I will put them right in here so they can take a look.
All right, and there's video of all of this too as well in a documentary. We had a documentary film crew there. That was the other cool thing. Okay, so this is what happens. So we walk across this field, and I step up, and the three kids, it's Phoenix, Jax, Fader 1, and Fader 2, right? These four boys. And I step up, and I look down, and I kind of lose my shit. Excuse me. And there is a footprint in the grass, in through the mud in this grass, and it's, I don't know, 20
17, 18, 20, yeah. Somewhere there.
Oh, and I'm looking, you can see the arch, you can see the toes and the heel, and I'm like, what the? No. And I'm 200 pounds, I'm 6 foot tall. I'm standing there, and I just kind of move my feet a little bit, and I'm looking at my feet. I'm not even denting the ground, right? Yeah. But I'm clearly looking at this footprint. So I take my finger, and I stick it down into the hole. My finger goes in this far. Right? Oh, I've got plenty of pictures and video of this, but this is the first moment, and I freak. And I get on my phone. I go, dude, get the film crew, get over here. Where are you at? I said, where are you at? Okay. And it's 200 yards away, but I'm like, over here. What's going on? Dude, we got a Bigfoot print in the middle of the field. What? Just get over here. And the next thing you know, we've got a pretty good crowd of people, and we're all looking. And I said, you know what? Everybody back up. There might be more footprints, and it's tall grass. So we kind of back everybody up. Then I take out a $1 bill, right? And I lay it down next to this, and we're taking pictures, and now the video crew's there, and we're shooting. We shoot the four boys, and they're telling us how they found it and stuff. We're measuring it, and I'm sticking my finger in, and And we're kind of always like, wait a minute, there might be more footprints. Okay, so this is going this way. What's over here? And we back up and we find one behind it. And so this one was a right footprint, and obviously, right, the toes.
Yeah.
And left is behind it, about 6 feet, long distance. Then we find another one in front, 6 feet, and it was kind of curved. And then we found a fourth one. So there was four. 1, 2, 3, 4 in an arch. And they arched off. Now, the last footprint, and this is what was weird, clearly defined, but the last footprint was only in the ground, like maybe a half inch. You could see the grass and how it was imprinted in there, but the first one that we saw, that thing was deep. The second one, a little less deep. And then the third one, which is the fourth one, was there, but not as impacted, and it curved off. And the one in the front was a little bit less than the main one, which was big and deep. But left, right in an arch. And the four prints were probably 20, 25 feet, between the first and the last one. And I tried to make a stride. Now, okay. So I couldn't even stride like halfway in between. And we got all of that on videotape. So now I'm picturing how big this thing is. So now we make a cast, right? But this is what happened later on that night. Peter O'Toole has a son. His name is Lorcan. Lorcan O'Toole. Looks just like Peter, talks like Peter, walks like Peter. You're hanging out with Lorcan because you're expecting him to break out with Lawrence of Arabia at any minute. Movie scene. But Lorcan is at this conference. I just met him, but he was great. And this is what happens. So that night we have a UFO sky watch. We make the imprints and this and that. And we have a sky watch, and we're doing that. And I had a camper. I think I had an RV. No. Okay, hold on. Let me back up. I'm staying at this motel down the street. I've been there so many times. I'm
hard to remember which one's which. Yeah, I know.
Because this is what happens. So I go and go back to the motel at about 2 a.m. And I come back. It's now 8 o'clock in the morning the next day. And I'm parking my car. And here comes Lorcan. Comes running out. Lorcan's probably 50 years old, 45. But he comes running out. And, dude, you missed Bigfoot last night. I was like, man, it's too early, man. I need breakfast. Give me some coffee. Too early for Bigfoot. He goes, no, it happened right here. And I go, what do you mean? I just gotten out of my car. I go, what do you mean? Right here. And I said, what? And he goes, I was walking back to my tent, and I'm with a woman. I'm going to walk her to her tent. And we were right here next to this van. I said, this van? And it was a big camper, Mercedes camper van with an extended top. And it was right there. I said, okay. And he goes, we got right to where you're standing. And I heard, whoa, whoa, whoa. I said, okay. And he goes, so we stopped and we kind of freaked out. And I go, where were you standing? He goes, where you're standing. So I'm standing on the side of the van. The front of it's over here, left side of the van. But I'm like in the back corner of it. The van's maybe 10 feet away from me, where I parked my car.
Right.
And he goes, so we were coming up behind the van. We heard the whoa, whoa, whoa. And we stopped, and I was kind of scared because of the noise. And we took a step back, and then out in front of the van steps Bigfoot. I was like, shut up. And he goes, dude, he was that tall. I said, what do you mean? He was taller than the van. Now I'm 6 foot, right? And the top of the van I can't even touch it. And he's telling me that Bigfoot came around from the front of the van and was standing in front of him. And, he's 8-9 feet tall and looks at them. And he said, I almost grabbed her. She had me by the arm and we were going to run, but I was kind of frozen. But we stood there and looked at each other eye to eye and had a stare down. And he said, then Bigfoot turned and went back behind the van, said, whoa, whoa, and was gone. And he said, where we're at the back of the van, and we came back out the other side, and he was just gone. They don't know where he went. And that was the day that we found the footprints. It was that night. So that week, I get back to Los Angeles. I have to host Coast to Coast. And I booked Lorcan on Coast to Coast. And so I had him come on. And we shared our stories and, the footprints and that sighting that he had that night. And so now does this make me, these are my personal experiences. And am I fully, well, I'm leaning further, right, than I was before, where I was like in the middle. I think that there's enough compelling evidence today with eyewitnesses, with researchers like yourself and others, that know for a fact that there was something going on. I haven't had a Bigfoot meeting. I haven't had that happen yet. But one of my closest friends, now this is the other part of the evidence, because I would say that, Jeffrey Meldrum and his collection of casts are pretty, that's pretty amazing what he has done over the years. But you and I have a mutual friend. His name is Eric, who introduced us, actually, Duke. And I don't know if Eric told you this story, but I think it was about a year and a half ago. I think it might have been during the beginning of COVID. And I may have the dates. This is a new story, but 20, right. I don't remember. So, but Eric and I are very, very close, and we talk a lot, and he's on the show a lot, and he's been a guest at my house many, many times, and out there around the country, we've done a lot of things together. He's a great guy. So, but he's also full woo woo. He's full woo woo, and I love that part about him. He's just got an open mind, and he will listen to anybody tell their story, right? And that's great. But and he's out there, as you know, Duke. He's out there somewhere in the country right now, as you and I are speaking. But I guarantee you, he's on the top of a mountain in New Mexico or Washington or Idaho or wherever he's always out there researching. But this is what happened to him. So I get this phone call, and he's sick, and he's in the hospital. So I call him up. He's literally like in his bed, and they've just admitted him. And he says, man, I'm really, 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 really sick. So what's going on?
Got zapped.
And well, now I don't know if the two events are connected, but the point being is what happened to him the week before him going into the hospital. So he's in the hospital for about a week, and then he gets out, and he's got to change his diet. He's got to do some things, but he had a pretty bad scare, but they fixed him up, right? But he goes, I'm talking to him, and he goes, but I got to tell you what happened. And I said, what? And he goes, you know what? I'm going to call into the show tonight. I said, well, what happened? So he calls in. Now, so this is the deal. We have his week in the hospital, and then he's out of the hospital for a week, and he's calling into the show, right? So 2 weeks after he was admitted to the hospital. But it's what happened before the hospital 3 weeks prior. But I don't know anything. So he calls in. He goes, okay, this is what happened, man. we're up in Happy Jack. Do you know where Happy Jack is?
No.
It's near Sedona, Arizona
Okay.
National Park. And he's up there with a couple of buddies of his, and they're squatching. Okay. And and the second night they were there, it's only him and another buddy, a friend of mine that's also been on the show. These two guys. And they're listening to music, they're drinking, they're doing whatever. It's 1:00 in the morning, and they go to bed. His friend is sleeping in his pickup truck, cab over, whatever, right? He's doing his thing. And Eric's got a camper van, so he's in the van. And he gets woken up about a half hour later. It's 1:30 in the morning, hearing this car horn, beep, 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 beep. And he looks out his window and he sees this giant shadow figure pulling his friend out of the car window.
Oh, God.
And his friend is honking the horn, right? And something else happens, and then his van starts to shake, and he could see something walking around his van, and he jumps down on the floor of the van, and he's trying to get his glasses, which he does, but then he notices that what was over by the pickup truck is now over on the van, and one on each side, and they're shaking it, the van. He said, dude, like they were going to tip it over. And he's freaking out, and he can't see from the waist up. Looking out his windows, he can only see them from the waist down. That's how big they were. Rocking his van, and he gets over to the side door, opens it, jumps out, and starts running. And he runs away from the campsite, gets out to the dirt road about 50 yards away, and he turns around to look back at the campsite, and the pickup truck lights turn on and the engine starts. That's his friend, right? Who he, by the way, ran and left. So, but as he's noticing this, he gets pushed down from behind. And he said it was like a tackle in football. Boom! And now he's on his face. And he looks up, and the pickup truck pulls up, his buddy John, and pulls up, and he's freaking out. He looks around, doesn't see what pushed him down. He jumps in the pickup truck, and they split. They leave his van, they leave the campfire, they leave all their stuff, and they split back to Sedona. And he says that they don't talk the entire way back. And he started to feel weird. He gets back to, he's in Sedona for 2 days, and gets a ride back to the campsite, doesn't talk to his friend. His friend is not talking, traumatized. He goes back to the campsite. His van is still there. He goes, gets his van, packs it up, splits, drives back to California, and gets sick. And that's when he goes into the hospital. Now he's in the hospital. That's when I talked to him. He gets out of the hospital after about a week. And then I talked to him every day at the hospital. I talked to the nurses, He got better, got out. Then he called into the show and tells me that story. And I know Eric really, really well. Now, that was the first time I had heard the story. And, of course, I've got questions. But about 5 months ago, had a dinner party at the house, and Eric comes over for the dinner party, and we had about 12 of us, and barbecuing and doing our thing, and we started talking about you. All right, started talking about Duke, and
and
Glass, right, and I think I told you about this.
Yeah.
So, but then he goes into the Happy Jack story, which everybody at the party hadn't heard, and he starts crying, and he is just emotionally. And Eric, I don't know if you met Eric, but he's 6'6", 6'5", big, tall, in shape guy, and I don't think too much intimidates him, but to watch him emotionally get so, you know, not well teary-eyed, but just emotionally traumatized by just telling the story again, tells me, this big, strapping, masculine guy, he's being brought to tears, tells me that the story is true. It happened. I think it caused him to have more questions than answers. He didn't get a fistful of fur. He didn't see Bigfoot. He didn't, you know what I mean? He didn't have
It
Sasquatch.
wasn't a class A, but this was like a good class B. Lots of peripheral things.
But he was very close. But he kept saying that everything was dark, right? That these entities, he thinks it was Bigfoot, but he doesn't have any answers, no firm answers, and crazy. Now this is where I can listen to people have their sightings and talk about their experiences and show me the pictures and all of that. That's great. This is somebody that I know really, really, really well, and I put that on the hardcore evidence side. It's right there where I'm going to weigh that as evidence against just about anything that I know. It's a pretty amazing story, and it was physical. I think it was interdimensional in some spots because when he got pushed down from behind, he never saw it. He only and this is a big guy, right?
Right.
For him to say that he got pushed down football tackle style says a lot because I'm not pushing him around. I'm not big enough, right? So what would knock him off of his feet? That's wow. And the whole thing, when he said he was looking out the windows and this entity was pulling John out of the driver's window of the car, but it was just a dark, tall, big shadow figure because it was at night. It wasn't lit up, and he could only see the size and the mass of it, but he never got like, the hair was brown or the hair was red or the hair was black. He had a white face. He had a dark face. He had this, he was wearing Air Jordans. He didn't, you know what I mean? He didn't have any definitive that he could lay on any of this. And so for him, that's so confusing. And then when they were on his van and he's looking out the windows, he couldn't see the top, right? So he can't see anything. He just couldn't make any of it out. And he said, I believe, and you should ask him about this, Duke, but I think he said like his tires were leaving the ground. They were rocking the van like that.
Yeah.
Back and forth. So
easily to believe that. I've heard a lot of reports similar to that. And I want to echo this one with one that one of my friends actually caught on video. He's a pretty well-known Bigfoot researcher over in Ohio, and he was out during the winter because, we're crazy. We'll go out any time of the year and tromp around the woods. And he's near this area by the river, and he finds this deserted camp. And he's going, well, what? Is this a homeless camp or something? And the title of his video was Found a Deserted Homeless Camp, Got Slammed. The Homeless People Growl. And what literally happened is he's walking around filming this, and it's strewn, it's in disarray. If these were homeless people, something happened because they don't abandon all their belongings, all their clothes, and their tent in the middle of the winter. And he's coming up on it, and he's going, hello, the camp. Is there anybody here? Is there anybody here? And there's no answer. There looks like signs of a disturbance and scuffle. He's looking at the snow. He's trying to find tracks, as some things are kind of looking like there might be Bigfoot tracks there too. And he's getting a little concerned. It's getting close to dark. So he turns around and starts walking out, and something growled and slammed him face first to the ground while he was filming.
The the evidence of some of this, because I asked you about this, and it makes a lot of sense that if there is some abandoned cabin, right, or campsite or old farmhouse or barn that nobody cares about anymore and it's just been sitting there and people ignore it, that that's got to be like a Hilton hotel for a Bigfoot.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, they don't, even though they're a lot more immune to climatic conditions than we are, heat, cold, rain, it doesn't mean they like being out in the rain or anything. If it's going to rain for an extended period, they'll seek shelter like any other same creature will. And if they don't happen to have a cave nearby, it's like, hey, there's an old abandoned barn right there. I'm out of the rain for a few hours. Hey, there's still hay in here. Nice, comfy place to sleep. And this has come up quite a few times, especially in the South, where people have went and investigated these supposed hauntings at old abandoned farms and stuff. And they get in the barn and they're like, man, there's something really stinky has been living in this barn. I'll give you three guesses what that really stinky thing living in the barn is.
But you just have to say to yourself, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, it would make perfect sense. They, from the evidence that you and others have presented to me that I've had access to, is a high level of intelligence, every bit of our smarts, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
Why wouldn't they understand the advantages of I could sleep in that cave or under that tree, or I could go into that cabin, right?
Yep, exactly.
Which way are you going to go?
I
Right?
think one of the limiting factors for them on that, Jimmy, is the size of the structure. Because a lot of these smaller houses and cabins and stuff, you never see any sign that they're in these things, but the bigger ones they'll go into. And it could be one of the reasons why they don't break in and ransack houses more often, because they're too damn big. It's
Yeah.
like they're being stuffed into a cardboard box. They can't maneuver. They're not sure what's in there. It's just too dangerous. So unless it's completely abandoned, they won't even go in it. And then the structure itself has to be big enough to accommodate them.
Right.
And if you're
Right.
talking about an adult, they're over 8 feet tall. They're over 1,000 pounds. If they got a rotting floor in the building or something, they're not going to walk in. They'll go through it.
Yeah. My dog house is really cool. It's really nice, but I'm not going to go in there and hang out. Right? It's the
The
same.
dog would probably like it.
Well,
Go visit them.
well, you know how it is. When your kids, make that really cool, blanket fort. And come on in, Dad, check it out. You only poke your head in and kind of look around, but you can't go in there and hang
It
out.
can't actually fit in there. Yeah, and that's the same concept. And the other thing is they're too smart to fall for things like that. Get into a small area that you're not sure of. Potentially there's humans or traps or something in there. No. That's just dumb. The only
Right.
time you really see them doing weird things is generally it's the juveniles. The little ones are between like 6 and 8 feet tall.
Right.
Those are like, late single digits or early teenage for their size, for how big they get. And just like teenage kids, they go on a rampage, they do stupid things, they get spotted. A lot of these reports we get of them running across the road in front of a car at night, we're beginning to get convinced because of how similar they are. They're doing this on purpose because a lot of the time the vehicle has a long straightaway and there's nothing happening until they get right on top of where this thing is, and then it'll jump out and run across the road. They had all the time in the world to do it before. They could wait until after the vehicle goes by. There's maybe no other traffic on the road, but somehow they want to do it right when the vehicle's there. Like they got their pals sitting in the bushes going, okay, watch for their reaction. Stay back from the road in case they drive off and crash. This will be hilarious. Let's see if they poop their pants.
Well, I think that there must be, just going to lay it out there. I think there must be at least at least two different things that we're talking about here. Okay. I think that there is a Bigfoot that is purely biological species, evolved here on Earth, lives in the woods, and just wants to be left alone. Okay. There's that. And then I think there's another part of this that is probably extraterrestrial, interdimensional, um, shows up maybe intentionally, but maybe accidentally sometimes. It may be a species of extraterrestrials that some ETC that is visiting Chewbacca, right?
Mm.
Uh, and that explains a lot of why we don't have the before and after experiences with Bigfoot. We only have the immediate sighting, but nothing before, nothing after, right? It's like they appear and disappear. And I'm very comfortable with that. In fact, I'm more comfortable with that idea, that theory, than I am just the biological side. The biological side, which I believe to be true as well, but that's a harder thing to prove because
Right.
it hasn't revealed itself. The other one you can't prove, right? But it explains everything.
Yeah.
It takes care of so many problems that we have with Bigfoot today, including my own experiences, like that, those 4 feet, those 4 footprints without a before and the after. It looked like this thing came and landed and then took off again. And as crazy as it sounds, that's what the evidence shows me.
Right.
But the other part where I live, and I live not where I live in Los Angeles. I live in Burbank, but right now I'm not there. I'm somewhere else. But I'm in a very very nice but very remote area. And where I am, I get to see the craziest wildlife every day. Elk, right? Deer. Oh man, just the craziest birds and things. And lots of Bigfoot talk where I'm at.
Mhm.
Okay, lots. People don't care about UFOs where I'm at. But
Because they're seeing Bigfoot more often than they're seeing UFOs.
everybody's got a Bigfoot story. So, but up here, I get to see like every single day. I see a bunch of deer. I see elk herds, right? And when you see these creatures, um, so majestic, right? But I haven't hit one yet, but I've certainly seen them.
Hmm.
And people hit deer and elk all the time. The car always loses. And you hear, but I haven't almost hit a Bigfoot, right? I don't get it. I don't get that part of the physical side. Are they so smart? And they probably are, but I have to lay this out there. Are they so smart that they are just one step ahead of us doofus humans? Because I'm an example of a doofus human. And if you want to hide from me, you're going to win. I'm not going to find you. I'm not that smart. And so if somebody wanted to avoid me in the woods, they're going to get lost. They're going to lose me. I'm not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not going to go out there and find them. So is that the case? Well, I don't think deer want to be found. I don't think that elk want to hang out with humans either. And they have a really good knack for avoiding us, right? Because I know from where I'm sitting right now, there are thousands of deer and thousands of elk, within a couple of miles of me right now. But I don't see 1,000 of them, right? I may see just one, but at least I see that one.
Yeah.
If Bigfoot he's probably around me somewhere, but doesn't want to be seen. Is it truly that way? Wow. Well,
It is, Jimmy. It actually is. That's part of their taboo. Don't let humans see you. Don't do interaction with humans. Avoid them at all costs. They're crazy. You can't trust them. They got boomsticks. They don't know
Right.
what you are. They'll shoot at you.
Right.
They're smart enough to put all that together. They're not, even like common animals like a bear, you won't see very often. In a lot of areas where they're shot at, they see a human, they run as soon as they do.
Mhm.
And, prey animals, less so. Unless it's hunting season, they're not concerned. But go live in an area where there's hunting season going on and see how many prey animals you see wandering around. None. They know it's hunting season and they're hiding.
And there's but there's another part for me that I know sometimes I just sound crazy. Okay? I do. I just sound like I'm just bonkers. But UFOs and Bigfoot go together. They just do. There's too many similarities about what is going on. And if we go back, if the Dyatlov Pass incident, if I'm going to bring up a case of Bigfoot and UFOs, I'm going to lay. Somebody says, what? Oh man, give me an example. Dyatlov Pass. That happened, and that case. And for those of you that have not heard of it or heard of it, never just go and look it up. Okay, it's in Russia, and in the Ural Mountains, and Dyatlov Pass. There was a group of
9 hikers. Dyatlov was the main leader, and they all got killed under mysterious circumstances and were found a few days after it happened. Now, their latest cover-up investigation that they did, they're claiming it was an avalanche, which is ridiculous. Doesn't match any of the details. The other thing that you're bringing up is that one of the pictures, first of all, there was a log entry saying, well, we now know the abominable snowman's real. We've seen one, okay?
Yes.
We know the snowman's real. And the other thing is they had a picture of something that supposedly was a snowman standing next to a tree. That's not a snowman. It's one of the members of their own party. It's clearly a human. That is not a snowman. Now, interestingly, there's a bunch of these other pictures that they took during this trip that are not commonly shown. And one of my Bigfoot researcher friends from up in Canada, who's really into this sort of stuff and was very curious, went and looked through those other pictures. And there's one where one of the female members of the party is standing out in a clearing. Somebody's taking a picture of her, and behind her, there's a wood line with a big hill. And there's a big boulder there, and there's trees and stuff. And sure enough, behind that boulder, there's an actual Bigfoot watching them. So there was one there. The picture they got that they're presenting is, well, here's a Bigfoot. That isn't. But if you go look at what the other pictures, and you can go check this out on Blaine Tyler's channel, because he found the picture and zoomed in on it. And clearly, there's a Bigfoot sitting there watching them. So is that what killed them? I'm not at all convinced. I think it was UFO related. And if you're going through a wilderness area that the Sasquatch live in, they're following you the whole time. They had a sentinel following them.
Well, and you've got to, when you look at everything else around Dyatlov Pass, all the other anecdotal evidence. Number one, UFO sightings for like 3 nights in a row.
Right.
Over this. There's that. By the military. This wasn't like, no, we're talking about crazy stuff being seen in the sky, number one.
But Jimmy, backing him up, the local Mansi tribe also saw those lights over the mountain from their nearby area too. And they're the ones that call that area in their native language, don't go here.
Don't go here.
These guys were camping on the mountain of death. Like no clues at all. You shouldn't be there, huh, guys?
Yeah. Also, the tents were shredded from the outside. That's the other thing. Number 2, number 3, and number 4. They all were not dressed. It's like, wait a minute. Why would you in the snow not at least put on your shoes? You can walk outside, without your underwear, but you're going to put your shoes and socks on first.
And this is what doesn't match the whole, avalanche theory. If there was an avalanche, they're buried in their tent. They have to cut their way out, okay? But that means they can also get all their gear and retrieve it and get out of there. Why do you cut your way out of your tent and flee a couple hundred yards down slope when it's 20 below in the middle of the night? You don't have shoes on or anything. You know you're dead. These people are professional campers and hikers. That's what they were out there to get a degree, basically, in being this kind of field hiking and stuff in really difficult conditions. And they had expert people with them that had done this multiple times. So that does not make any sense whatsoever. And then they found their remains in 2 different areas. One of them had a crushed chest. How do you get that far with a crushed chest? Another one was missing its tongue.
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Fly a mission, Duke. Drop a bomb. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But okay, so now we take all of the right Dyatlov Pass. This evidence just piles up, piles up, piles up, and then we get to like number 8, number 9. This got picked up and covered up by the KGB. Now, but that's I'm not going to spend time on that. But that's another why suppress this if it's just a bunch of hikers that drank too much vodka and lost their minds, froze to death in an avalanche. There's that. But then you take it to me, which is like number 9 and number 10. These were all in shape young adults. In shape.
Yeah.
You know, I'm 58. If I get in trouble up there, Bigfoot's going to catch me, and I'm not going to survive. I'm not going to run too far. But I also scare pretty easily. But when you're young, you're crazy, and you're in shape. You are going to put up a fight. You're going to do that. You're going to do that. You could run from the camp. You could run 5 miles back to the closest town. Whatever. You're young. And to have a group of young adults that were in shape, that were just barely into this hike, right? Just at the beginning of this great adventure, to have this happen to them, it doesn't make any sense because of their age. On my show, I had a Russian husband and wife visiting from the Ural Mountains, didn't speak any English. So I had the husband come on Fade to Black and let him tell his version of the Dyatlov Pass story. And he lived 15 miles from the site.
Oh, good Lord.
It's one of the craziest interviews I had ever done. This guy was, I'm going to say 60, 55, 60 years old, and passionate about this story. And the people in Russia in the Ural Mountains all know about UFOs. They all know about Bigfoot. They know about the craziness up there. They know which mountains are called, Death Mountain, right? Don't go there.
Certain Doomsday Peak, Apocalypse Valley.
The dumbass mountain. And but Dyatlov Pass has all of these things in it. Now, could it just be as simple as they were attacked by a Bigfoot-like creature that stepped off of a friggin' flying saucer? Is that possible? Yes. All of this evidence suggests that. And as crazy as it sounds, you have to look at the evidence. You brought up and draw your own conclusions. You brought up the photographs. I had access many, many years ago to the original, every photograph, every one, and off of like 3 cameras. And I looked at all of them in order, right? And just go and look at those pictures. And then the evidence site of the aftermath. And you look at them meeting at the train station, right? The group, and they're, they're starting off their adventure and all the way up to that last day. My opinion is, if I was going to present something in a court of law, if I'm trying to tie, Bigfoot and UFOs together, it's a Dyatlov Pass. It is one of the most extraordinary cases in the history of everything. And I'm pretty sure there's another element to this, why the KGB stepped in. I think that the Russian military knew. They knew about.
Absolutely, they did, because when the recovery team showed up, they noted there was already tracks there. Somebody else had been there before them.
Yep. The Russian military knew. They know how they died. They knew about the UFOs. They know everything that there is to know, because and what I mean by that is, it sounds very elementary to put it that way. The local indigenous people there have a long history of UFO activity, Bigfoot, spiritual things going on in the hills. And the Russian military has a base there, and they do a lot of secret testing of. I think they have a missile site there. They were firing missiles. So they have a lot of very smart people in the military that are in that area. But also, are they in that area because of the UFO stuff? So it's just a fascinating case. Dyatlov Pass. It's amazing.
That's probably one of the problems with it, because there's too many weird things connected to it. So it's hard to vet which one in particular was associated with it. There's a supernatural element to this too, where the local natives are, again, this is the mountain of death in the area called Don't Go There. And why did they have that? Well, because guess what? 9, same exact number, of their people had gone through that area and vanished. And what was even more peculiar when this happened again with 9 young people, not from their area. And, they all get mangled and stuff. And the other thing is the state of some of the bodies. A couple of them look like they had been hit by hard radiation, shriveled and orange.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that doesn't happen if you just pass out in the snow. You're very well preserved if you die and you're frozen. That does not happen.
Yeah, what would and you have to ask yourself this. I mean, just go to the basic questions. What would make me run out of my tent buck naked in the middle of the night into the snow to die?
Yeah. And keeping in mind, they didn't try to get out through the door. They cut their way out through the back wall of the tent.
Yeah. What would make me say to myself, I need to run buck naked through the snow? What is it that's going on at that moment? Because I can assure you, Duke, on my list of priorities, down at the very bottom is running through the snow naked in the middle of the night. I mean, seriously, that's way at the bottom.
Totally agree with you. That getting back to what you were talking about too with the origin, are they connected to UFOs and stuff like that? Now, we absolutely think that there is a connection, but probably not in the way most people think. And that's just in more or less the same way that there's a connection between us and UFOs. They show up and abduct people. They're messing with us. They're watching us. If they're here, from some other planet, presumably doing a survey on humans, well, there's another intelligent hominid running around the planet. Of course, they'd be abducting Bigfoot and studying them too. But we have reason to believe that, first of all, we aren't even native to Earth, because, without technology, we can't survive here. We need our technological crutch, so we don't seem very well adapted. Bigfoot, on the other hand, don't need any technology, and they can live everywhere on the planet. So which one's a better candidate for actually being native to here? And then you go back and you talk to the natives about their legends. Well, who was here in North America first? Well, Sasquatch. And who got here next? The giants. Then we showed up. Yep. Okay, so Sasquatch was always there first. And then the other thing is, if you go back and you look at it from a biblical standpoint, there's several candidates along those lines. One, of course, is descendants of Esau. But if you go back further, there's pre-Adamites. Before classic modern human, there was other things running around the earth. We've got that from the fossil record. Homo heidelbergensis, Homo neanderthal, Homo denisovan. They were similar to humans. They can inbreed with us, but they're not humans. And Sasquatch has already been classed taxonomically. The father of taxonomy, Carl Linnaeus, actually classed them as Homo ferus, feral human, in the first book of taxonomy ever published 400 years ago. And we've got their DNA evidence. There's been a DNA study, several, but the biggest one is the Ketchum DNA study. Dr. Melba Ketchum did it with over 100 samples, and they all tested exactly the same. Mitochondrial DNA, human, and nuclear DNA, which would be the father, unknown. But she had enough samples that she could hazard a guess that at some point between 12 and 15,000 years ago, these prototypes similar to us hominids had actually inbred with us. And a lot of the ones, at least on the North American continent, are the results of that. They're basically hybrids. And there probably are some of the original ones around. So let's get back to your statements before about, I think there's 2 different things. There's the flesh and blood ones, and then there's the ones that have the woo-woo powers. Well, no, they're kind of the same thing. The hybrids are probably the ones that don't have the woo-woo powers. They're half human. The prototype ones, probably do have the woo-woo powers. And from what we've been able to see from the researchers that have been looking into this, and keeping in mind, a lot of this isn't speculation. Some of these people actually talk to Sasquatch. Some of them physically talk to Sasquatch. Some mind speak. And they all start giving you the same answer. You start going, okay, these people don't even know each other. How are they all coming up with the same answer? They're talking to somebody that's giving them all the same answer. And, you know, what they say is that they're not fallen angels. They're not Nephilim. They get very insulted when you say that. They don't even like the word Bigfoot because they think their feet are perfectly proportional with their bodies. And if we don't knock it off and quit calling that, they might start calling us tiny wiener or something just to get even. And that's a joke. But the the thing with these guys is that basically their job is to stay hidden. Are they the watchers that are referred to in the Bible? No, not technically. But if you go back to the Bible again and you talk about the early stories in there, especially when Cain and Abel. Cain kills Abel. Now God's mad at Cain. Why'd you kill your brother? I'm throwing you out of here. Get out of here. Oh, God, don't do that. Those other guys will kill me. Who are these other guys that are going to kill him that he's talking about? Again, referring to the pre-Adamites. And so God gave him a mark so they wouldn't kill him. No one knows what the mark was exactly. But in some way, he marked Cain so that these other people, whoever they were, wouldn't kill him. So we know even from the biblical account, there was pre-Adamic races running around, and we know from the fossil record they existed too. And you can do the same thing to back up the accounts of little people. Well, are little people real? Well, we got skeletons of two different kinds, Homo luzon and Homo flores. They're real, man. How do you know that there still aren't some other ones running around somewhere on the earth? People keep seeing them. So,
well,
you know, it's
the evidence for that is also recent. All right, I'll never forget when the Hobbits are real press releases started to pop up. It was about 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, and that's pretty interesting. But I believe that there are two versions of us. There's you and I talking, then there's ghosts.
Yeah.
And so we can't, so in a roundabout way, we could say, well, okay, that's us. You know, it's us in another form, but well, okay, you can kind of, you know, it's ghost of my mom and it's a spirit of the, well, there's that, but we don't even clearly define what a spirit is, what a ghost is. We don't know. Right. And then there is another aspect of, you know, maybe it's time travelers. Maybe they're it's a stargate, it's a wormhole, it's some kind of portal vortex that they're stepping out of. That doesn't mean that they are us, the flesh and blood part. They may look similar, they may be related to us, they could be us from the future, but it's not us. Mm-hmm. And that's what when I say that there are two versions, you know, until we fully understand. I don't know if we will ever actually know, except we know, going back to UFOs, there's two versions of UFOs. There really are. I mean, I've seen, you know, metallic, crazy things flying in the sky. I've also seen things that I don't know what they were. I'm not sure if they were metal. I don't know if they were plasma. I don't know if they were energy. I don't know if they were floating orbs. But I don't think that some of these things that I've seen have a dashboard and controls and a seat and a bathroom and a kitchen, right? And a bed to sleep on, and it's a Winnebago. I don't think so. In some of these lit up orbs, as big as they are and beautiful and, you know, really performing amazing feats in the air, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's somebody inside of it flying it. Now, right. Is that the same as an airplane or a helicopter? No, it's two different things. Nuts and bolts, metallic, mechanical, moving through the atmosphere somehow, physical thing that you can go up and, you know, knock on the door. Right. And there's this other stuff, night or day, that it's got a physical presence to it, but is it necessarily physical? No,
Hmm.
it's not. And also, and we can keep, visiting the same subject. Some of these energy crafts, plasma, these light vehicles, I've seen so many of them, they tend to appear and disappear.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the part where, and I keep going back to, well, that would explain Bigfoot, right? No before and after, just appears in the now.
Mhm.
And I just did an interview, Duke, with somebody you may know. I don't want to get into the details, but talked very extensively about Bigfoot arriving here from their dying planet, right? And they are spirit. They appear as Bigfoot in front of us, but actually they're just spirit beings that live in the trees and live in nature, and that show themselves as Bigfoot when they choose, but in their natural state you can't see them, right? And is there something to that? Well, maybe, and I'm okay with listening to everybody's interpretations.
Well, we know there's physical ones because people have shot them, people have killed them, logging trucks have hit them. The military generally comes along and scoops up the body.
Mhm.
Glag's parents were killed by junk hunters,
Uh,
and that's how Kevin knew about that whole situation.
Duke, what happens in forest fires?
Things get burned up.
Right. And if a Bigfoot Sasquatch body is found by a fire crew, what do they call the feds? Right.
Yep, they call them. They go, "We got an identified corpse here," and then guess who shows up and carts it away? And the other thing is, I don't think they get killed in forest fires very often. You've got to have a forest fire with a hell of a wind pushing it at a high velocity in order for them to not be able to outrun it, because they can easily run 45, 50 miles an hour. We've got examples of them chasing cars, and the people are looking at the speedometer as they're racing away from them, and they can't lose them until they get up over 50 miles an hour. Well, how often do you have to run over 50 miles an hour to get away from a fire? Not very often. And they're smart enough to know to get in rivers and stuff too. When Mount St. Helens blew up, there's reports that there were several of them that got hurt in that one and actually came to the humans there for help, and that they took them away to a nearby military facility for whatever. If they released them or not, we don't know. But there's those weird reports that came out about that one. But I think in general, they're so fast and so smart that they're just not going to get caught by a forest fire. Most of the animals know better than that. We got pictures here. One of the fires that was going on in Montana a couple years ago, where the mountains on both sides are on fire, just blazing, looks like hell. In the middle of the valley, there's a river, and standing in the river are all the deer. They're not stupid. They're just standing in the river, waiting for the fire to stop. The other thing with the Bigfoot to keep in mind is that if you go back to all of the native tribes had names for them. A lot of them had interactions with them. Most people don't know. At one time, the tribes were trading with a lot of them. They had one designated guy in their tribe that knew their sign language, and he was the guy that would go out and trade with them, give them things, and they'd give things back that they could easily get that we couldn't find very easily. And so there was this trading partnership going on. And we think that ended right about the same time the colonists showed up and spread disease all over the continent. There was a mass die-off of the natives. And in a lot of cases, the person that died may have been the one that knew how to do this communication and didn't get a chance to teach anybody else. And in other cases, it may have just been the Sasquatch going, these little people are all keeling over dead. Let's stay away from them for a while. There's something wrong with those guys. Stay away from them for a while. And so that seems to have been a thing of the past. I suspect with some of the tribes, they may still be actually doing it, not telling anybody about it. But all the tribes will also tell you that Bigfoot walks in both worlds. It walks in two worlds. It's not just from our world. It's from another world, and they can pass back and forth. And that's what they're talking about when they say, Bigfoot can go through portals and stuff. They're piercing the veil, to put it in biblical terms. They can go right through the veil. They can come right back again. And in some cases, we're starting to think this is actually accommodating some of the lesser powered entities to get here, that they may just attach on like a lamprey when the Sasquatch passed from their realm to ours, because they can't get through the veil, but Sasquatch can.
Right.
So they just stay near 'em. When they come through the veil, poop, they show up. And the other thing is that in areas where there's known portals, there's not only Sasquatch, but all this other kind of high strangeness there. And for a while, I used to think it was just like, well, a portal's like a bus station. Everybody's using it. They're coming and going and stuff. And the more you talk to the older native tribes and stuff, you start getting the impression that what's actually going on there is they're guarding the place. They're keeping an eye on it to make sure the things that they don't like aren't coming through. Because there's certainly cryptids they don't like and don't want around too. They endanger their offspring. So there's certain cryptids that they will definitely kill if they get into their areas. As a matter of fact, I'm getting information right now from 2 different sources that this is breaking out in the deep south right now, that the local Sasquatch are having issues with one of the other cryptids, and they're basically going to war with them, and they're going to exterminate them.
There is those out there that used to be like me. I'm leaning further on the good side of the fence, but you don't understand it, and especially if you live in a city or you live in the suburbs, you don't understand how remote most of the United States is. And once you are away from Chicago, Detroit, New York, Cincinnati, right, Miami, whatever, Charleston, once you are away from the shoreline of the United States, east or west, doesn't matter, and you get into the heartland of the United States, where probably 99% of everywhere that you go, you can put your foot down where no human has ever walked, ever. The forest and the mountains is so dense for as long as the eye can see. It's like forever. And you just know by looking, and you can go from the west coast of the United States all the way past Denver, Colorado, and get into the plains. That's half of the United States. Half. No human has walked in that stuff. None. And you just know it. You look and you just absolutely know that anything can live in there, and does. And if you want to go and hide, you just look, and you look into the redwoods, and you look into these massive forests that go for, 1,000 miles in every direction, where it's as remote as it can possibly be. And if you want to be alone and by yourself, that's where you're going to go. And as crazy as that may sound, it's the truth. It's really the truth. And you can drive through Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, California, Nevada, and pick a major highway and drive on it, and then just look on both sides of it. And everywhere that you go, nobody has ever been there. It's the truth. So I'm
that even goes with the native tribes out here. There's some areas that they absolutely would not go in and wouldn't live in. They were taboo. And a lot of those areas today are big national parks. Nobody has been living there ever.
Have you seen the TV series? It's 3-parter. Have you seen Murder Mountain?
No, I haven't seen that.
Murder Mountain has nothing to do with Bigfoot, but what it has to do is with what I'm talking about right now, that there are remote places in this country that people just don't go to. And Murder Mountain is about growing weed, right, in Humboldt County, Mendocino County. That's what the movie's about. But the other part is that there's a reason why the weed gets grown up there, because nobody goes there. They're all alone. The police don't go up there. Nothing happens, and it is remote, isolated, and that's where you go to be by yourself. And if you never want to talk to anybody ever, it can be done. And and when you see like a documentary like this, it's pretty interesting. The pot part and the murder part, yeah, it's all cool, but you get a little taste of how remote there are places in this country right now where you can go and disappear and
I'm
never be
I'm
seen.
I'm pretty much there. I'm living western Montana, right in between Glacier Park and Yellowstone Park, and everybody knows what they look like. And everything in between kind of looks like that too, folks. Let me give you some examples on how colossal the Pac West is. My state of Montana is one of the biggest states in the Union. If you get over on the east side and you jump on the freeway, which goes pretty much straight across the state, has to cut a little bit northwest on the far side of the state, but you're going 75 miles an hour and it takes you 12 hours to drive from one side of the state to the other. When you get to the eastern third of the state, you're looking at an area with 52 mountain ranges and 24 million acres of forest, just the western third of Montana. If you're driving from Missoula, Montana, which is way over on the eastern or western side, which is where I'm at, and you take the freeway will put you out in Spokane, Washington. It's 176 miles from Missoula to Spokane. And guess what? You're going through one mountain valley the entire time. There's no side roads, there's no big towns or nothing. You've got literally 200 miles of mountain range that you're driving through, and there's nothing there.
Right,
Nothing.
right. And then you have Coeur d'Alene, which is
Yep.
alleged all aliens. I heard
Well, judging by a lot of Idahoans, I think there's a high percentage of their population may actually be aliens. There's a reason the B-52s did that song about you living in your own private Idaho, you know.
yeah, absolutely. How far are you from Missoula?
I'm right in Missoula.
And let me zoom in. Okay, well, you got a pizza place. You know, it's not that.
It's actually one of the second biggest town in the entire state. We only got 75,000. There's
Right.
no first class city in the entire state of Montana. We only have 1 million residents, so there's only one area code for the entire state, all 12 hours it takes you to drive across it. And our prescribed social distancing here is actually 1 square mile.
You say that in jest, but I believe it. Missoula's pretty complete though. It's but this is the funny part about Missoula, and I've been through there. That's all there is. You know, Helena, Missoula, Bozeman, Billings. You know, we hear these names. Go
And
look
Butte.
at Billings someday and check out the. You know, it's 15 streets.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
it.
and the colossal distances between, you're talking about what would be smaller towns in most of the US. Those are the large cities here, and there are no actual cities in Montana or Wyoming because they're not big enough to be cities. Even the capital in Wyoming or Montana, I think, is around 100,000 or less, Helena. But it's 200 miles in between all of these towns.
Right, right,
And
right.
these are just little towns, and there's nothing in between.
Look at Butte. Wow. Wow.
It's beautiful. It looks like a nuclear crater that they already nuked the place, and then people build a town in it.
I didn't even know that was there. It's called the Pit. That is cool.
Yeah. There's actually a local joke on that because one of the snipers that supposedly took out Osama bin Laden is from that town. And the joke was that the terrorists figured out what town he was from, and they were going to fly in and they were going to get revenge and destroy Butte. And when they walked in, they just got return flight tickets and left because they decided it had already been destroyed.
Oh man. Bonner. Wow.
Yeah, Bonner's right next to me. It's about 15 miles away from here.
Yeah. And so when you look around, there's nothing there. There's
No.
nothing there. And the Lolo National Forest, just go and zoom in. That is nothing but I don't even know how many.
It's all giant national forests that all connect to each other. Only the teeny little valleys is where humans live. Everything else is national forests, national parks, gigantic areas. They all connect to each other. If I go 1 mile from here, I'm in the Lolo National Forest, and I can drive northwest for 80 miles and still be in the Lolo National Forest.
Yep. Until you get to the Payette. national forest.
Yeah, and it's all national forest and all connect to each other. And a lot of these, like, they don't have access roads or anything. The only thing they've got going into them are fire roads for this time of the year when the fire season's on. If they need to get vehicles in there to put out a spot fire in some area, and they don't keep these things up very well. There's huge areas of mountain ranges where there's just no roads going in there.
Right.
Nobody goes in there ever.
No. And that's back to my point. You know, you can just drive on one of these freeways, look to your left and look to your right, and know that nobody has ever set foot there. And that's it. I'm always fascinated when I fly across the United States in a plane, and I just kind of look out the window and just wonder, you know, if anybody ever went through there. You know, like as in ever, and the answer is probably not.
I think people would be really surprised to find out how much of the stuff that we've got on our maps was aerial survey. People haven't walked into these areas on foot and surveyed them. They literally don't know what's there on the ground. They mapped them from the air. Right.
I want to, one of my goals, and I say this every year, and I start off like this every year, but I want to go out with some friends and spend a week out in the forest. I want to do some squatching where I want to listen. I want to go and check things out and see. You know, I think it would be absolutely fun. If nothing happens, I eat some good food, I hang out with some friends, and we connect back to nature, and there you go. But what if, right? Clyde Lewis, he's another show host, and Clyde calls me up. It's about five or 6 years ago, and calls me up and goes, "Dude, man, saw Bigfoot yesterday." I said, "What? Well, I didn't see Bigfoot. I saw Teen Wolf." What? And he said,
I'd be confused too.
He said, we were sitting in our cabin, me and my team, and there's 4 or 5 of us having coffee, and this mini Sasquatch that looked just like Michael J. Fox and Teen Wolf, buck naked, comes up and looks in our cabin door. Yep.
Remember what I said before about the youngsters making stupid mistakes? There you go.
He said everybody freaks and jumps up, makes a bunch of noise, and Teen Wolf runs straight away from them. And he said he saw it through the cabin door the whole time. He didn't go out of sight, ran straight away from the cabin and into the woods. So they take off running, and they go into the break of the trees. And when they came out the other side, there was a pond there. And so he didn't go straight. He went right, and don't know. So like a year later, I call up Clyde. I go, "Dude, where'd you see this Teen Wolf?" And he goes, "Are you there?" I said, "I'm there." And he goes, "Okay." So go back to the main cabin. And I said, "Okay." So I go back. I go, "I'm here." Right there, that cabin door. I said, "What?" He goes, "Walk in." It's not my cabin, okay? It's somebody else's cabin. But I knock on the door. They let me in, and I've got him on the phone. He goes, "I was sitting on the couch." I said, "Okay." He goes, "You see the coffee maker?" And I looked to my left. I said, "Yep." We were drinking coffee out of that coffee maker. I was facing the coffee maker. So I sit down in the couch, and then I'm still talking to him on the phone. I look to the left, and I can see the door. I said, "Okay." And he goes, "Now, as you're looking out the door, go straight to the trees." And that's where he ran into the trees. So I get up. This is Duke. It was crazy for me to be able to do this, right? So I get up, I walk out of the door, and I go straight to this break in the trees. I got him on the phone, and I walk out, and there it was. There was a pond on the other side. Wow, that's pretty trippy. And then up in the tree, right next to me is a Bigfoot warning sign. And after their sighting, somebody put the Bigfoot. So I took a picture of that standing. But yeah, and it's what do we do when all you have is a story,
Yeah.
right? Because all I've got is a story, right? I don't have an ET T-shirt that I got, right? I don't have any evidence, from a ship. I don't have any selfies that I've taken with aliens. All I've got is the story. And now, by me telling the story doesn't change my reality. It doesn't. My experience is my experience. And I don't care anymore if I share a crazy experience that happened. I don't care what people think of me, but I also have to try. If I expect people to at least hear me out, as crazy as the story may be, and not look at me funny and just listen to me, then that's the same courtesy that I give somebody else. They may have this crazy, you know what? I have to listen because I've got my crazy BS too that I spew out.
Damn right.
But it's my reality.
Yeah.
I'll share this with everybody. And I know that we've been rambling for 2 hours here, but I'm going to share this story for everybody. This was 8 years ago, and I'm out with probably about 150 people or so, maybe 200, a pretty good group. We're out in the desert, and we're on the edge of this cliff at night. And so while we're out there, and so they announce, oh, Jimmy Church is here, Coast to Coast AM, and everybody's yelling in the dark. There's a lot of people here. All right. Right? And like a little battery powered PA system. Jimmy, how's it going? It's going pretty good. Woo! And everybody's yelling. I was like, okay, all right. I got a microphone in the desert. Okay. So I get the microphone. What's going on, everybody? And we're whooping and yelling. But this is right after this happened. This is what happened. Somebody, I got night vision goggles, and somebody taps me on my shoulder in the dark and goes, look at that. And they point. And I look to my left. The cliff is in front of me this way. I look to my left, and I can see a mountain range. And right it's not far away. Okay, a couple of miles maybe. But anyway, so this first mountain peak is here, and right next to this peak, it's a mountain, pops out on this side, is like this green chrome ball. That's what it looks like, and it's big. And it's going level across. I'm pointing over here. It's so everybody knows we were all facing this way. Suddenly, I'm turning and off in the and this green chrome ball, and it's probably maybe 500 feet off the ground, 1,000 feet, whatever but it's up, and it's just skimming across the front of the mountains. And I take out the night vision goggles. Now somebody's holding this microphone in my mouth, right? So I got my night vision, and they're, tell us what you see. And I said, okay, it's a green chrome ball, right? and people are shining lasers at it. There's a documentary film crew from Canada that is there with like 3 or 4 cameras, and they're all filming this. And you can watch the videos online, and you can hear me do the narration, right? And I'm describing. So anyway, it's really cool to see in the video, and it's going across, and then I'm watching it for like a minute, and then it goes and starts to turn up. I'm like, okay, it's going up in the sky. It's going, and people are shining these lasers, and every time this laser hits it, there's like 10 lasers, but I would see it sparkle when it would hit this object. So it's not a ball of light; it's like solid.
Right.
And so anyway, it tracks 5 minutes, and just goes straight up. No, so it goes across the ground for like a mile, and then turns up this green chrome ball and goes up and stops. Now it's a star. And I'm watching it, and I'm just telling everybody what's going on with that. And then it goes, pew, gone. And the whole thing lasted about 5 minutes. Now, this is like my first crazy sighting like this. And everybody out there's 200 people yelling and screaming and watching this thing for 5 minutes. I walk away and I'm like, holy crap. What do I do with this?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the next day is Sunday. And Lisa Lyons, the executive producer of Coast to Coast, calls me. She goes, so Jimmy, who's your guest this Friday? I said, me.
Good answer.
Yeah. She goes, what? I said, it's me. She goes, why? And I tell her what happened. She goes, okay, all right. I said, I'm going to tell everybody what happened. I'm going to take some phone calls. And she goes, it's going to be an excellent show. I said, okay, all right. So Friday night. Now this is the deal. So I'm thinking about this, Duke. And this is my thought pattern. Would I have a very, this isn't my ego. These are just the facts. I'm a frigging talking head in mass media with the biggest audience in the world. That's my job. Okay. I'm not dreaming about this. It's my job.
That's what you're doing.
I am the host of the biggest overnight talk radio broadcast in the world. Okay. So what comes with that is a bunch of responsibility. And depending on most nights, I have a bigger audience than Tucker Carlson. I've got a bigger audience than Anderson Cooper. I've got a bigger audience than Fox and CNN combined. It's a lot of responsibility on my shoulders. So would Anderson Cooper, if he just saw what I saw, would he go on CNN and talk about it?
Hell no.
Nope. Would Tucker?
Hell no.
Bill O'Reilly?
Hell no.
No, they wouldn't. And I really thought about, I just, you know what? Those 200 people that were with me on the edge of that cliff, they know who I am. And if I'm not going to stand up for them and go and tell the world about this, you know what? I'm a POS. Mm-hmm. That's not cool. These people are going to go tell their friends. You know what? I was there. Jimmy Church was there. And man, he saw it too. Well, you know what? Unless I go on the air and talk about it, that means nothing.
Yeah.
So I need to just quit. I need to stop worrying about what other people think. So I'm going to step out of the closet now. You know what? I'm going to do this. So I told Lisa that was my plan. And I told her why. She said, Jimmy, absolutely. It's your show. I'm just asking, what do I put on the website this week? Right? I said, okay. All right. So Friday night rolls around, Duke. And Friday, Saturday night on Coast to Coast, those are the biggest nights of the week. It's not Sunday. It's not Wednesday. It's Friday night when nobody has to work on Saturday. And it's Saturday night when nobody has to work on Sunday. Those are big audiences. And Friday night on Coast is what I would normally do is I would have a guest on for an hour, and then I just open lines for 3 hours, right? That was my thing. So this particular night, the guest is going to be me, and then I'm just going to go to open lines. And I go on and I tell the story. And then I go to open lines. It was a great night. But for those people that were there can now say, you know, Church went on Coast and told the story. And the video was out there. And not only the eyewitnesses, but the pictures and the things, it's all out there. But this was the crazy thing. I know Fox is listening. I know CNN is listening. I know MSNBC is listening. I know BBC is listening. I know all the other radio hosts are listening. I know that all of their producers are listening all around the world, right? Oh, that's it. It's coast to coast. Somebody's going to call me, and I'm going to be able to tell them the story for those people that were there with me that night. Crickets. Not one member of the media called me. Nobody sent me an email. And that's when I realized that from now on, this is a long time ago, from now on, I am going to represent this community. If something happens, I don't give a crap. I don't care what people think. You know, I don't care if I'm the crazy guy with the tinfoil hat that is calling me on the show. Whatever they want to think, I don't care anymore. And I was so moved by this sighting and its implications to me as a person, because where we saw this, 29 Palms Marine Base, the biggest training facility for the Marines, like in the world, right? It's 29 Palms. Airstrip, helicopters, jet aircraft, whatever, you know, right there. It's 29 Palms. It's 15 miles away. With all of their radar and everything that they've got over 29 Palms, do you think that they knew? Of course they did. They were watching it right along with me. They didn't fly out any helicopters. I didn't see any planes come over, you know, and that all of this just blew my mind. And I thought to myself, the same things that all the Sasquatch hunters and all the UFO people out there that have been screaming about for years. I saw this thing and nobody did anything about it. It was right next to an army base, right? Sasquatch ran through the Air Force base, ran through the cafeteria, tipped over tables, but it's not in the news, right? Why won't people talk about this? And I turn around and I go through my experience when I'm a member of the media. And my story isn't heard. It's not questioned. Nobody sent me an email. Nobody did. It was nothing. And I started to see the same frustrations that other people out there that have seen what they've seen, and they get called nuts, or they don't. It's not important enough to make it on the news. Well, my story wasn't. So that's it. I've decided that I'm going to stand beside this community. I'm going to talk about what I'm going to talk about. If it's Bigfoot prints in the dirt with 4 little boys in the middle of a field in summer, and I have that experience, I'm going to talk about it, and I'm okay with it. And I just know that millions and millions and millions of people are not crazy. I know I'm not crazy, and neither were the 200 people that were standing with me on the edge of that cliff that night. And what we saw, they weren't crazy. This was something that we all watched, and the media chose to ignore it. And me, as a member of the media, and as much influence that I may have, I'm going to take advantage of it, and I will support this community, and I will never stop.
God bless you. We all really appreciate that, because we need a strong advocate for the paranormal community and all the different branches of it. They just get sidelined too much, you know. Go sit in the corner, wear your tinfoil hat. You're crazy. Oh, you know, I have kind of the same opinion about dogmatic science, so it goes both ways, boys. But Jimmy, I'd like to give you an option here, and that is come on up and see Sasquatch with us.
I would love to do it.
I invite people up here, you know, before you say anything one way or the other. I don't expect people to believe what I tell them. I show evidence. That's what my show is about. I have the people on there that are taking the pictures, are getting the evidence, they're talking about it, they're showing it. And it's the same thing my research team does. And here's something people have heard me say on the air for several years now. When I take people out in the woods, I don't charge them anything to go with me. They get to have the experience. You just bring your stuff, you come with us. I'll take you to where they are. And chances are fairly good you're going to see one. How good are your chances? 85% currently of the people I've had with me, team members or guests, have seen one while they were there. Okay, so your chances are pretty damn good that you're going to see one. And part of the reason for that is because we've been going to the same area for years. And the local Sasquatch up there are used to us. and they know we're not dangerous. And they probably question our sanity because we're in grizzly country and we don't carry guns. And, so they've gotten used to it to the point where they know we're not dangerous to them. We know they're there. They know we're there to, look around for the stuff they're making. And at night, they get right up next to camp. We had somebody 2020, I had a friend from Alaska down. I took her up there camping. And while we were sitting in camp, one about 80 feet upriver stepped right out of the tree line and let her see him clear as day, like half an hour before dark. And then I went and measured because she could see exactly how tall he was and how wide he was. And yeah, he was about 5.5, 6 feet across her shoulder and 10'4". So average size.
One of my producers here on the show told me, it was about 10 years ago, he said that his parents, who I knew his parents well, played golf with him back in the day, 25 years ago, that they had a ranch up in Montana, and they lived, here in Los Angeles, but they would go up and spend the summers in Montana. And I think he said they had, crazy, whatever, 5,000 acres, and they had a river that ran through their ranch. And it was him and his mom and his dad. He's the only child. But he would wake up in the morning, grab his fishing pole, and go fly fishing down at the river. And so he's down there, and he's fly fishing, and then he said this rock. Now, behind him was an embankment that was too steep to climb up, right? There was a path to go up and down, but behind him, it was straight up 15, 20 feet. But that's where he was. He's fly fishing. And he said then this softball-sized rock.
Oh, God.
It gets thrown and hits the riverbank right next to him. And it kind of startles him. And he sees the size of the rock, right? It's ball. And he turns around and he thinks he's like 14 years old. He thinks it just got unlodged by itself naturally, rolled down the side of the dirt, the cliff, and the embankment, and just rolled. That's his first thought. He continues to fish, and he goes, it happens again. A frigging softball-sized rock, this time just lands, plunk, right next to me. And I turn around, I'm like, what the hell? And he's not thinking Bigfoot.
Oh, God.
He's just in a bad area. So he goes up. This is his family's property, okay? So he goes up the river 50 feet, 100 feet. He's fishing again. Frigging softball-sized rock lands. Blunk. And he spins around, and he looks, and at the top of the embankment, eyeballs, this friggin' Bigfoot looking at him, his head like this. And he looks, and Bigfoot ducks. My God, friggin' Bigfoot. Up the river, and as he's running, the rocks are coming, right? They're being tossed at him. And he's running, and he runs up this path. He's freaking out. He's getting these softball. He's telling me, man, he's like softballs. He makes it up to the top of the hill. There's a tree line and a ridge. He runs around it and runs home. Never saw the Bigfoot. None of that, except for looking at him over the thing and then chasing him out of the river with these boulders raining down on him.
God.
Boulders.
That's a really common story, actually. You hear that a lot, and it's usually when they're fishing on some deserted river at night, they get the boulders rained on them because they're like, hey, stupid human, this is our fishing time. Get off our damn river. But there's other ones where they'll even do it during the day, and one of the scariest ones I heard, these guys were on a pretty wide river, 50, 60 feet across, and it was an equal distance from that back to the edge of the hill, from the edge of the river to the hill, another 50 or 60 feet. And it was pretty much like a cliff. It was good and tall. And they're sitting there fishing, and all of a sudden, they said it was like the size of a cannonball boulder, boof, in the middle of the river. So the river's like 50, 60 feet across, and they're looking, going, well, how did that fall off the cliff and not bounce and make a noise before it hit the river? How did it roll or bounce that far and hit the river? So they're kind of looking up, and as they're looking up, they see another boulder the same size fly over the top of the cliff out into the open air and drop straight down into the river.
Yeah, it's kind
At
of
which point, one of them knew something about Bigfoot and went, we need to get the hell out of here.
it's very similar to my friend Mark's experience. That the edge, and what he tried to explain to me, it's dirt, but you can't climb up it because it's too straight,
Steep. Yeah.
right? It's too steep. He can't see Bigfoot, but the rocks are coming over the edge, and he's running up. But he said he just happened to catch. He looked quickly, and the face was right here like this, and then ducked, but looked right in his eyeballs. He said, dude, it was just like right there, right behind me.
God. I asked the guy who was telling me the story about them throwing the boulders into the river. I said, what did you think it was at the time? And he said, I really had no idea, but I was pretty sure there wasn't a catapult crew back there that was lobbing boulders at me.
Well, and Mark never went fishing again.
Oh,
No, it freaked him out. It freaked him out. Man, this has been a great conversation, and I listen, Duke, I really want to thank you. Anytime you want me on, man, you just call me and I'm here.
You are very, very welcome to come back. I will definitely have you back on the show, because I know after this one airs, everybody will be going, when are you going to have Jimmy back on again? That was really fun listening. So, of course, I'm going to have you back. And I once again want to just make sure that you don't think I'm kidding or anything. Drag on up here. Bring Eric with you. You guys spend a few days. We'll go out to my research area. I can't make guarantees, but chances are really good you're going to be in the 85% to get to see one.
I can't wait. And Eric, I have the right vehicle to do it. And by the way, I want to thank you for the Punisher hat idea, because I just ordered one. And I cannot wait. It's going to be here in 2 days.
Yeah, the Sasquatch love my Punisher hat. And it's like, oh, there's that idiot with a skull on his hat again. He's like Mr. Magoo. He can't see anything. Let's get really close to him and browse him.
Yeah, next time we'll talk some music, and we'll tell some other strange stories. And I just love being able to do this once in a while, where I can just let it all hang out and yap. But you're the best, Duke. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks, brother. I really appreciate it. I'm very honored and really flattered that you were willing to come on the show and spend some time. And again, I'm sure everybody's just going to love the hell out of this episode. And they'll be like, have Jimmy on again. Can you have Jimmy on again tomorrow? And I'll be like, no, Jimmy's too busy. Wait a little while.
Anytime. And for everybody out there, go and listen to Duke's appearance on Fade to Black. It was a great night. And for most of you, you've probably, heard the Glag story many times. But what was really great about that night was we got to not only revisit that, but I was able to ask questions. And Duke, you were just amazing. And we talked about all kinds of other things too as well. But that was really down in the invite everybody to go and check it out. And there you go. Thank you so much, Duke. Behave well. Wear that Punisher hat.
And let me tease everybody before we go. Speaking of Glag, there's one Glag saga story that has not come out yet. There was another person that I actually knew 3 years before Kevin contacted me. And after he told the Glag story, they went, I think I ran into that same Sasquatch. Are you serious? Yeah, can you put me in touch with Kevin? So I gave Kevin's number to her, and she called Kevin. And the next day, Kevin called me super excited and went, that lady you put me in touch with, she's seen Glag. And I went, how do you know she's seen Glag? He's like, look, Glag has a scar. I didn't tell anybody that. She not only described the scar, she described it exactly and exactly where it was. And I went, okay, well, I'll have to make sure to have her on the show, because she never even bothered to tell me the story. So after that, I harassed her and I'm like, okay, what's the Glag story? You never bothered to tell me. Well, I didn't think you'd believe me, but blah, blah, blah. And here's what happened. She got rescued from a forest fire. She was on her horse. Horse panicked, threw her, broke her ankle. Horse runs away. Fire's coming toward her. And here comes this huge Sasquatch that picks her up. And I'll let her tell the rest of the story. She's going to be on very soon. She's recovering from surgery, and when she's in a little bit better shape, she's going to record, so maybe even next week. But there's one to look forward to, Jimmy. Somebody else besides Kevin that actually had an encounter with Glag.
I can't wait. I can't wait. Duke, you're the best, man. Don't go changing, and I can't wait to get up to Montana and hang out. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, and make sure you come on up. You and Eric come on up here.